Greetings, everyone. This is probably the most difficult talk of the day because it's just after lunch, so bear with me. It's only 15 minutes. So let me talk about Datadog for people who may not know us. Is audio okay? So we are a monitoring analytics company that basically help you deliver cloud applications, at scale. We really target software engineers as our base users. So what we do more specifically is we'll collect from your software stack metrics, logs, traces in real time, and then let your software engineers do dashboards, be alerted when things go wrong. We do anomaly detection and stuff like that. So it's sort of a we started 8 years ago. We're headquartered in New York. We have over 8,000 customers now, all over the place. 800 employees. R&D is both actually in New York and Paris. We have about 120 people here. And we're really growing 100% year over year, and that's been sort of fairly consistent, which has its own challenges. And I'll only talk about one of them today, which is how we use, what's our philosophy to use customer analytics and interactions to shape the platform, the products. We have one yes, we have one special customer, Pied Piper. I don't know if you guys watch Silicon Valley. So this is a still frame from, I don't know, season 4. And so they, well, it's really low res, but here, this is one of our dashboards. We didn't even know that they were going to use it, but it was like, yes, we made it. We're part of Silicon Valley now, even though we're based in New York. Cool. So now onto our actual topic. So we run a SaaS. We're in B2B, and SaaS has a great. It's a hard way to run a business because there's a couple of redeeming qualities. I think one of which we like really a lot is that we know what our customers are doing and what they're not doing with the product, and because really when you operate as SaaS, you have this unique vantage point into seeing what people like and what they don't like, where they see value, where they don't see value. It's not completely obvious, but it's there, it's accessible. And this is in comparison with if we were, say, in the same business 20 years ago, we'd probably sell CDs, or we'd send floppies or CDs. And then we'd have to, year after year, rediscover, oh, well, this customer actually didn't use us, so we're gonna lose them, or they're gonna churn, or this customer loves us, and they wanna buy more. SaaS sort of changed that altogether. The other thing that's redeeming about SaaS is that you run one version for everybody, and so that's that really cuts, that not only cuts your maintenance budget. You don't have to maintain 25 different versions for 25 different customers, but also it gives you a great baseline to compare between customers, how they behave. They use the same product. The hard part about SaaS, which I find one of the hard part, is that today, the expectations of quality of service are really, really high. They are on par with what consumers expect of services online, for instance. And so that means that in our space, for instance, the sort of enterprise IT software, the old world there's no future for it. Like the big applications that require a lot of effort to install them, set them up, get users to start adopting them. That's not the future, very clearly. The existing legacy is going to continue to exist, but there's going to be an issue with if that's your model. I think it's the wrong model. And when you operate a SaaS, the new reality is if you're down, or if your product sucks, or if it's hard to adopt, then you're going to die. I mean, as a company, not as a person, hopefully. What that really means in the end is you have to invest into your customer success. And that extends beyond having a customer success team, which is relatively doable. It really has to pervade through the entire company. I'll tell you what that means in more details. So how we use, for instance, analytics to understand what their intent and their actions are. So we do it in a couple levels. One is, from a performance standpoint, is the product working well? Is it fast? Does it have errors? Are users generally satisfied with the quality of service? Well, that's what we do for a living. So we use ourselves, and that's great, and so on. And then there's a plethora of other products that help you understand what people do with your product. Which part are really active and not active? I mean, this is the mixed panels, pandos, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so those give you really an understanding of if you're building features, whether they're adopted or not, because you have real-time feedback. Now, when you use analytics, the key thing to remember is you typically get an aggregate overview. And the problem with there are several problems with that. One of which is it's an aggregate. So typically you'll have maybe the median, the average percentiles. It gives you a sense of, generally speaking, how things are going. It may give you a sense for some of the customers, some individual interactions, but not necessarily every single interactions with most of those tools, definitely on the mixed panel side of things. And so you have to be careful with how you interpret the data you get back. I mean, I remember in some cases we've done A/B testing, and so we're a B2B application. We don't have zillions of users like Google or Facebook. So when you do a B2B, an A/B testing, and the tool tells you, hey, there's 3% increase of A over B in terms of, let's say, adoption or interaction, and your margin of error is 10%, then it's effectively told you nothing because just the sample size is too small. Other problems, pitfalls we've seen with this approach is you go in, you have no hypotheses. You're not testing something. You just, you're hoping that there's something in the data. The thing is, there's anything you want in the data. And so that's also something we've had to educate ourselves really to understand. You have to use tools like these to validate hypotheses. You think you want to test that, I don't know, this new thing is going to actually get adopted in for this particular segment of customer. That's your hypothesis, and the tool tells you, yes, you're right, or no, you're wrong, or I don't know, you need another test. And the last thing, and this is going back to the fact that it gives you an aggregate overview, is you have to pay attention to outliers. Tools that either do real application analytics, typically, for instance, do not know really who the customer are. I mean, you can do some segmentation and so on, but outliers are going to be, for instance, the least used parts of your application, or the most used part of the application, the slowest part of your application, the fastest part of your application, or the biggest what the biggest customer, the top 10 customers do. And this is something that you can look at manually, because you only have 10 top customers by definition, and they're only one fastest thing, or one slowest thing, or one most used thing, or one least used thing. So that's super important. So that said, so you use analytics, gives you kind of in real time a good overview of what's happening, but you don't want to neglect individual interactions. And they come in different, and this is really what that means, is talking to people in plain English. And there's a couple of ways you can think about it. We do, for instance, we've had from the early days, like a little chat box at the bottom right of the screen. I think we used Olark back in the day. I don't know, we've changed since. And the idea is to have, you're going to have these reactive interactions with individual users amongst your customers, and these are super useful. They can be extremely annoying sometimes, and it's a lot of effort to support that, kind of around the clock if you have global customers, but it pays off. And initially, your approach may be, well, if I put the chat there, I'm going to get spam, I'm going to have people who complain, and so on. So the chances you actually don't. I mean, we never really, have very occasionally somebody spamming us wanting to sell us something. Usually we expect the opposite. We do have pissed off users, and that's fine. And that's something that another thing we learned is a vocal user is a user who cares, and a user who cares is much better at somebody who doesn't care. And our initial approach was to say, well, how do we engage people who are pissed, and should we create a vector, a channel for them? And the answer is yes, because what we discovered time and again is somebody is pissed, but they care. They come to you, and if you fix the problem well, they'll remember, and chances are they'll convert. Let's say they're a prospect, they'll convert to a customer. It's a much higher chance than if you let them, you ignore them. And now you don't only want to have reactive interactions, you also want to have proactive interactions. That is to say, you get out of the building, you dial your phone, you meet people, here you meet your customers, you go visit them. This is fairly simple, but it's really super helpful. In total, that the way we think about how Datadog evolves over time is it's really a mix of a couple of things. It's a mix of vision. It's a mix of, analysis, and if you will, it's a mix of conversation or anecdotes. The vision is it defines what the product fundamentally is, who it fundamentally serves, what pain point it solves, and that's something that you have, or your team has, and it defines who you are, effectively. And that's a long-term thing that will evolve as you understand your market better, and your customers better. But it's there at the beginning, and then it'll slowly evolve. The analysis or analytics it really tells you what works and what doesn't work. It doesn't tell you why. It just tells you, oh, we built this great feature X and nobody's using it. Okay, well, now we've learned something. But if you want to understand why, you got to go talk to people. You could let them come to you. So what we do is you do a mix. We collect all, of course, interactions inbound, and we just go outbound and ask customers, hey, we noticed you start to use X, but then you stop. What happened? And then you'll find people to talk to you in that sense. From an organization standpoint, the way we did it is it's sort of a balancing act. And what I have behind me is a reflection of who our customers are. So our customers are software engineers, tech folks. And the thing that I think everybody, even outside of technology, hates is having an interaction with a vendor where you feel like you're talking to somebody who doesn't understand what your problem is, who has no power to fix it, and you're just wasting your time. So we decided to go against that from day one. And staffed all our customer support with engineers because they're going to talk to their peers. So we might as well have a grounded conversation from the start, and to the point where we embed customer support also in product teams. And so as a result, they have a really good visceral understanding of how the product is used, and they can relate that to the product teams. Like this which you think is great doesn't work, and we've seen it's been a source of problem for our users, and you need to understand how to fix it. So we have customer support on one hand. We actually have customer success, though they handle mostly commercial renewals and stuff like that. And then we have product managers, and the number one goal of project manager for us at Datadog is not to write specs, is not to say what the product does, is to go get out of the building, talk to customers, understand what it is that they want and what it is that they need. Make sure you understand the distinction, and provide us with a summary so we can guide, generally speaking, kind of start within the vision, figuring out, well, we should veer slightly there, we should invest in that particular area because there's demand for it. At the end of the day, I'll say customer success or your customer's success is everyone's job, and it sounds trite and borderline bullshitty, but really what that means is it's not just the fact that you have a customer success team doesn't mean that you're there. It could be counterproductive, potentially. If you're on a SaaS, everybody needs to understand, and this is something that I tell the team all the time, like, yes, we build a product, and for product teams, we write code, we run it, and so on, but ultimately, we sell a service. Our customers don't buy the product, because legally, that's not what they do. They just buy access to the service it provides. And so that's something that I found people get receptive to, but it takes some time. It's not something that particularly and the CTO, so I deal a lot with engineering teams. It's not something that comes natural to them, and so sometimes it's easy to lose the perspective of the customer and just think in maybe technical terms and stuff like that, and that's something that we're actively pushing against. And that concludes my little speech. Thank you very much.